Do you think you've heard of brutal punishments? Wait until you experience this method of execution so cruel it defies human understanding. Imagine being reduced to living pieces, with every moment filled with indescribable agony. Prepare to discover how this unimaginable practice has gone down in history as one of the most brutal ways to end a life. Are you ready to face the details? In France, a peculiar spectacle divided opinions. While the guillotine was criticized for being too quick and emotionless, crowds cheered for the savage, breaking wheel. In this method, the victim was tied to a large wheel, and their bones were systematically shattered with heavy clubs. The sound of agonizing screams was, for many, the true entertainment. But if you think that's cruel, brace yourself for the barbarity that dominated England for centuries. The infamous hanging, drawing, and quartering. Imagine being condemned for treason and facing a fate so grotesque that your very body would become a horrifying message for all to see. This extreme method spared no detail. First, the condemned was dragged for miles, paraded before frenzied crowds. Upon reaching the execution site, they were hanged until they were on the brink of death, but not quite. That's when the true nightmare began. While still conscious, their internal organs were removed, and parts of their body burned before their eyes. When the executioner finally ended their life, the body was denied peace. Axes tore through limbs and torsos, and the dismembered pieces were sent to distant cities as a blood-soaked warning. Don't you dare defy the king. Welsh Prince Dafydd ap Gruffudd, deemed a traitor by Edward I, suffered this grim fate. His right arm was sent to York, his left to Bristol, one leg to Northampton, and the other to Hereford. His head displayed on a spear at the Tower of London. Even William Wallace, the legendary Braveheart, was reduced to pieces scattered across Scotland and England. Human remains became macabre relics, preserved with salt, tar, and even cumin to prevent decay and ward off birds. The morbidity reached almost unimaginable levels. This wasn't just punishment, it was a spectacle, propaganda, and a brutal reminder of the crown's absolute power. This method wasn't for ordinary crimes. It was the ultimate penalty for treason, meant to leave an indelible mark on anyone daring to dream of rebellion. But what does this say about societies that cheered for such atrocities? The gruesome practice of hanging, drawing, and quartering wasn't just about punishing the individual. It was a theatrical demonstration of the state's authority. The public displays of dismembered bodies served as an unmistakable warning to anyone contemplating rebellion or treason. These remains, often mounted on gates, bridges, or city walls, transformed cities into macabre museums of fear. But there's more to these methods than meets the eye. They were designed not only to punish, but to humiliate and erase the legacy of the condemned. The psychological impact was just as devastating as the physical torture. By scattering body parts across the kingdom, the monarchy fragmented the memory of those who dared defy them, reducing once proud rebels to little more than disjointed warnings. Take the case of Sir Thomas Armstrong, executed in 1684. Illustrations of his quartering show an executioner meticulously slicing through his spine and severing his limbs at the hips. This methodical brutality wasn't just practical, it was symbolic. Each cut was a message. Unity against the crown would be met with destruction, both literal and figurative. And yet some executions backfired on their orchestrators. Instead of inspiring fear, they fueled martyrdom. Figures like William Wallace and Guy Fawkes became legends, their gruesome ends immortalized as symbols of defiance. The public nature of these punishments, intended to cow the masses, sometimes ignited flames of rebellion instead. This paradox raises a question. Were these horrific executions truly effective in maintaining order, or did they inadvertently sow seeds of resistance? As history shows, the power of a ruler isn't just measured by the severity of their punishments, but by the legacy they leave behind. If this glimpse into the darkest corners of human history has piqued your curiosity, stay with us as we uncover more tales of power, punishment, and the unyielding spirit of rebellion. Don't forget to subscribe and join us as we continue to explore the twisted and fascinating truths of the past.